Hi, welcome to Mary's Kitchen. Today we're going to make a fresh baked apple pie. You remember the flavor that you used to have when you'd come into your mother's kitchen and you could smell the apples and the cinnamon baking in the oven? Well, we're going to try and do that for you today. Make sure you get some fresh Granny Smith apples. Make sure they're really firm, nice and hard and tarty. They'll be the best apples for your pie. And you're also going to want to have your lard nice and cold and chilled. You're going to need to cut it into cubes prior to putting them into the mixer to do the pastry. So the recipe that we're doing today makes 3 double 9-inch pie shells. Today we're going to be using 5½ cups of flour, 1 pound of lard, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 1 egg. Please make sure it's at room temperature. Maybe take it out an hour before you're going to start the recipe. And maybe 1 to 2 tablespoons of water as you will be mixing it in with the flour mixture. On my apple pie, I like to enjoy it with some ice cream, but some other people like to have it with custard or some slices of cheese, good cheddar cheese. Either way, you're going to enjoy this pie. Okay, so we're all ready to mix the ingredients. I have my KitchenAid Professional 600 I'm going to be using. Just makes it a little bit easier on the wrist, you know, getting a little bit older and it's not as easy to mix it with. So you don't have to use a KitchenAid. You can use your hands or a pastry cutter. That works as well. Or 2 knives if you want to do it that way. But I prefer to use my KitchenAid Professional 600. So we have put in some flour and lard already into the mixer. So we're just going to turn it on and take it from there. This is cold, eh? Mm-hmm. So while the machine is mixing, you're just going to want to try and take the lard away from the sides of the machine so it all gets mixed in together. That's doing a great job in there. Just give it a few more minutes. Okay, so the flour and the lard is getting well mixed. So now we're going to add in our 2 teaspoons of salt. And our 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Mix it up. Now we're going to add in the egg. Gotta love this KitchenAid. Look, Mom, no hands. All right, so we've removed the mixer from here. So now we're just going to add some water to it, just a little bit. We don't want to overdo the water because it will get too sticky and you won't be able to work with it. Just a little bit. Just a bit to get it to stick together because you do have to roll it. Oh, one thing, make sure you put your rolling pin in the fridge. The pastry likes a cold rolling pin and it just seems to work better and won't stick to your pin as much. Okay, it's starting to get a little there. Just put a little bit more. Okay, not bad, not bad. So, I think it's looks pretty good. It's sticking together, it doesn't look too flaky. Well, I think we'll give it a shot and give it a roll. Okay, so we have the flour mixture all ready to be rolled out. We're just going to put it into 3 separate kind of balls to make the pie shells with that. So I'm just going to bring it all together, just to get it all mixed together so we can apply it onto the counter here. Okay, so I'm ready to place the pastry onto the flour. I'm just going to lightly flour the counter so it doesn't stick anywhere. We want it to come out lovely to go into the pie shell. I'll just give it a little roll over the cutting board. Okay, just do a little bit more. There we go. All right. I'll just get it out of the bowl and start making the shells. Cut it into 3 sections. So let's see, about there. One about there. Okay. So we got our 1 section here. We're just gonna probably have to lighten the countertop again. Put a little bit more flour on there. Okay. Now you're going to have to cut it into half again because you're going to want a top shell and a bottom shell. So we'll just put that one off to the side. All right, so now we're just going to make the 1 shell. Okay, so we're just going to roll the pastry nice and lightly, nice moves. Keep going off to the side, back and forth. Want it to stick as, if you can help it, it's starting to stick a little bit. Apply a little bit of pressure on it, not too much. Okay, so I think we've got our size here now. We'll just check it out with the pie dish. Now remember, you put the pie dish down and you want to cut around maybe about 1/2 inch wider than the pie plate, because once you flip it and do the pinches around the sides, once you put the top on, you're going to want enough dough around the sides to close it. Almost done. Okay, so you're just going to want to pull away the excess around once you've got it done. Just put it off to the side. And then you're going to want to just move the pie plate. You're going to want to fold this over in half, then put this back over, gently slide it on there, and then flip this back over, and just kind of work the way around the pie, just to make sure that you get all the sides covered. Just kind of work it in, make sure you get all the air bubbles out. If you don't get the air bubbles out underneath once it bakes, it's going to make a bubble on the top, and then all your ingredients will be underneath your crust, and it won't do its job that you want it to do. Okay, so we got it like that. So we're going to put this back in the fridge, keep it cool, and then we're just going to do the other shell for the top. So we have the top shell for our apple pie. We have the bottom one in the fridge cooling. It has to cool for about an hour. And then this one will be about the same amount of time. So you put your pie plate upside down onto the pastry and just cut around. You don't have to do it as thick as you did the other one, as you've done the bottom. This one you just kind of just go around it. Perfect. So you can place the shell back into the pie plate if you prefer, or because it does have to sit in the fridge for about an hour. So just lightly take it off the ground. There we go. Easy. Gotta make sure it's all off the counter because you don't want it to get stuck and then half your crust is on the counter and you're like, no, don't want that. So I'm just going to place it onto this cutting board, which will be a little bit more easier to remove once it's ready to go. Okay, so we have the shell on the top. So now we're going to put this in the fridge and we're just going to start to prepare the apples for the pie. So for this pie, we'll probably be using about 6, maybe 7 apples, but we'll see. We'll just judge it as we place them into the dish. So we're just going to start to prepare. I like to peel them first to get them ready so we can cut them. We do have some ingredients that we're going to be putting in to give the pie its flavor. We have 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. We have 1 teaspoon of nutmeg. We have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice and 1/4 cup of brown sugar. So once we've prepared all the apples, we're going to place them into the dish and put the mixture on top. Then we'll be removing the crust from the fridge and getting ready to bake a pie. Once you nicely got your apple peeled, we're just going to decore it. Try not to cut yourself. Always try and cut away. Now the best thing is try and make sure that you do get some apple on the back of it, because if you leave these little, I don't know what they're called, but where the seed sits, those things will really hurt your mouth if you bite into them. So I have about 1/4 cup here. So I'll just show you here again on this camera. There we go. Okay. So once you have your apple like this, you're just going to cut them into 3s, and that will give you a nice size shape of apple. Just place them back into the dish. And there you go. Okay, so as you can see, I have sliced all the apples up, and they're in the pie plate. There's 5 apples here. So we only needed to use 5 and not 6, as I thought we might have. So we're just going to take the apples and pour them into this bowl. Then I'm going to do the lemon juice first, just to get the juice on there. Then we're taking the 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, sprinkle it around, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Now just mix it all in. Try and make sure you get it all mixed in really good. I tell you, that nutmeg and cinnamon together just woohoo! Smells good. So now we're just going to pour this into the pie shell. I have my pie shell from the fridge. I'm just going to place the apples into it. But first, before you do that, you want to make sure that you take a fork and poke the bottom about 4 times, just to let the air bubbles out. Okay. Well, one tried to get away there. I saw him. Just slide right off. So try and get as much juice out of the bowl as possible. Okay, take your fork. Try and get them looking nice. Okay. Doesn't have to be perfect, because they're all just going to bake down, find their own way. But just kind of make it even on the top before you put your top shell on the top there. So what you do is you take your finger with some water, go around the edges and just dab the sides. Make sure you get enough water on there to make it so it glues good once you put the top shell on. Okay, so you take the shell, you fold it in half, and then put this shell on the top. Make sure it just fits good. And there you go. Perfect. Just kind of give it a little squeeze down. There we go. Now you take the fork and just go around. You got to turn and push it down so it glues together. There we go. Okay, next you're going to take a paring knife and just cut around the edges up against the pie, just to give it a nice trim. Actually, I'm going to put it on top of the cutting board because I can hear I'm getting too close to the counter. Okay, disregard the scraps. You can just put them in the waste bucket. And then you're going to do a few slits on the top just to let the steam out as it bakes. So after you're done your slits, I like to take some egg whites and just put it on the whole top of the pie before you put it in the oven at 350 for about 35 to 40 minutes, depending on your oven. So you just kind of glaze it over, and this will give it a beautiful glaze once it's baking in the oven. So I like to sprinkle some sugar on the top after you've put the egg whites on, just to give it a nice little extra taste to the pie. Okay, now we're going to take the pie over to the oven and put it in. There it goes. See you in a bit. Just heard the timer go off, and we're just going to get the apple pie out of the oven. Oh, it looks delicious. And there we go. So we're just going to let it cool for 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll dig in. Okay, so we got the pie out of the oven, and we've had it sitting for about 15 minutes. And now we're just going to cut a slice. And there you have it, delicious apple pie with some ice cream. The right sweetness and the tartiness of the apples and the ice cream, delicious. I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. Please check out my other video on how to make chocolate chip banana bread. Until then, see you in Mary's Kitchen. Bye.